Welcome to another session with your boy Franklin. So I've got my brother friend here, Ernest, who runs a catfish business. So if you haven't, go and check out the videos description below for two very helpful and informative live stream sessions with Ernest on how to set up a catfish business and how to avoid mistakes that can potentially, destroy your business. These are very helpful information. So go check them out. So this one basically is us discussing how Ernest has managed to successfully run his catfish farm, his catfish business during the course of the pandemic. As you're aware, a lot of businesses have been adversely affected, a lot of jobs and, you know, revenue and stuff like that. So this one is basically to find out how he's been able to sustain himself and particularly sustain his business during the course of this pandemic. So let's go. What's up, Ernest?
Hey Franklin, thank you for another session. Once
Yeah.
again, it's always good to be here. Farm manager, reached out to me like, okay, so this is what's happening. So how do we had that meeting? How do we sustain the business? If it gets to the point, because at that time in Nigeria, the government was already saying we'll be going to a lockdown. They're
Mm,
going to shut down interstate travel. So, and before then, remember I said in our last session the
mm,
students were my main customers. Right? They are the ones I cater to the most. The restaurants, they cater to the students. And if there will be a case of a lockdown, that means the students will have to go back home.
mm,
So that demand will notice a decline. There will be no, it won't be as it was. And COVID came, the lockdown was fully effective. Nobody could go from Lagos to Edo State. From interstate was shut down.
mm,
And at that point, what we did as a farm was we made sure we had enough because then we were not producing our feed. Then we were
mm,
still buying. We made sure we invested. We bought in advance, so we
mm,
stocked up. We stocked up. I remember spending a lot of money in feed during that period. Um, we made sure we had enough in house. So, to at least what we did was usually we budget every month. At this month, this is how much we spend on feed. We just at that point bought the entire feed that we needed to grow that particular stock up to the size we needed them to get to. So we did our calculations. We know how much it was going to cost us to grow that, to raise those fishes to the size we needed. So we stocked up the farm with that. So at
mm,
that point, we know what was going to do, and then we had to pay workers as well, right? So what we did was we planned to run the business in terms that even if we don't have no customers, we can sustain ourselves and our employee. Let's set up the business in a way where we can finish our production and then we can then sell to customers, right? Knowing fully well that the customers will not be there like they were as far as the students that we were catering to. And COVID came, people were losing the jobs. Unfortunately, it was really sad. And then I had to make sure that my staff would keep their jobs. So we had to strategize. We had like a Zoom meeting like we're having right now. I had a Zoom
right.
meeting with everybody. They were on there. We're like, okay, what do we need to do to keep this business going? And I remember one of the guy telling me, "Okay, I just got married 2 months ago. I cannot lose my job." So it was more personal to not just us as a business. We operate as a family, so we try to figure out what we can do. So this was what we eventually came to. We said, okay, people will tend to lose their job, unfortunately, and there'll be interstate lockdown. Although you can move goods around as far as feed, um, produce that people need to eat to survive, that can
Right.
easily move around, but you can't really have customers moving back and forth to your farm like they would normally do. And with COVID coming into play, what we had to do is what we did was usually we raise our fishes to get to 1.5 to 2 kg. That was the demand before COVID. So we had to go back to the drawing board and reduce that. So we then said people will not be able because the students that would usually buy that are gone. They've gone back home. They're, social distancing. Everybody's back home now. So people will still want to eat, but they don't want to spend too much on fish. Because they want to spend what they have to spend. They don't want to go out of their way to spend. Just like it would affect me as a individual. If COVID is on, I'm not going to go spend 4,500 naira unless I really have the money to. But the average Nigerian at that point is trying to cut, and spend what they have to. So what we then said is, instead of growing and raising the stocks to 1.5 and sell fresh, what we do is we reduce the time frame we use in producing these fishes. We reduced it to 3 months. So 3 months, we're able to get 400 to 500 grams of catfish,
Hmm.
and that we know it's quite available, so people they can buy. So we reduced the size of what we produced, and we doubled the production in it. So in other words, instead of raising them to 1 kg in 6 months, we raised them to 500 grams in
Hmm.
three and a half to 4 months, and we doubled production. So I'm just going to give a rough figure. So we had an original goal to raise 12,000 that particular harvest cycle. Well, we doubled it. Well, our goal was to raise up to 20,
Right.
right? So we raised up to 20. Instead of raising that for 6 months, we raised those for 3 months, and then we added value to it,
Right.
and then we smoked it. We smoked it. Now we brought that to the market. It was readily available. People were able to afford it. So what we would sell 1 kg of one size packed catfish for 4,500 naira. We were selling, because when you smoke that, you probably end up having like 250 or 150 grams of fish. And then it is quite affordable. You can spend 500 naira to buy fish, not even think about it. So we restructured the model of the business at that point, just to cater for COVID. Now, when everything gets back to normal, we would go back to how it was. And but as of right now, up to date, what we do is we no longer raise them to 1 kg, 1.5, 2 kg. Right now, we just stop at 500 grams, and we add value to it. And adding
Right.
value to it also helps us preserve it. So we do the harvest ourselves now. We don't invite farmers to come to the farm and clear the ponds, because as we speak, fish is scarce in Nigeria right now as we speak,
Right.
due to COVID, because farmers went back home. They had to make sure they can keep themselves, the family alive during COVID. They were not really interested in farming during COVID. So
Is that due
the
to what? They are you saying there are farmers that are struggling at this point in time,
yes, mhm,
with their farms?
absolutely. Not all farmers are projecting and planning, record keeping, and doing all the there are
Yeah.
peasant, there are farmers who just do it the way they know how to do it, and they sell. And some farmers, after when COVID came, I'm sure some of them just did the last harvest before COVID, and they were like, we don't know what the world is gonna don't know what the world will turn into due to COVID. Let's just go home and keep our money and keep ourselves alive through COVID, right? So we had
Right.
farmers that went back home. And there's some farmers that still kept practicing what they're doing, just like myself and other farmers as well. They were still in the business, right? So that also the supply became less available to farmers. So as we speak, my next harvest is scheduled for next month, but I can almost guarantee you that there will be a high double the demand of catfish, especially smoked or fresh, because there's not much available right now. Okay, so what we did was we went back to the drawing board, and we tried to reduce the size of what we produce, and we also invested more in marketing, because now we are targeting a different kind of client base now. Because before COVID, we were mainly catering to students. Now we're catering to the open market. The open market. We're contacting the malams that were selling in that were buying in bulk. We were contacting restaurants owner, caterers. We were contacting pretty much everybody. Like, listen, you don't have to buy 1 kg, 1.5. We have 500 grams readily available for you. There's this model that I followed back when I was growing up. The toothpaste. They have the sachet toothpaste,
Right.
and then people would go to the local malams every day, like every 2 3 days. Like, hey, give me 20 naira packet toothpaste. They will buy that. They would not buy the 150, 200 naira box, toothpaste, due to what they can afford.
Yeah.
So now, if you can then say, let me buy three of the sachets toothpaste, I can buy that and then use it than buying the one that comes for 200 naira. So we're trying to make sure we can cater to everybody. So when we did that, we were in business. That we sold, we went back to harvest, we sold again, and then we're just making sure we invested more on ground marketing. So we pulled back from running ads on Facebook and Instagram during that period. We invested more on door to door, marketing. I know during COVID, it was a little bit restricted to what you can, the people you can face, you can go to due to the social distancing and all, but we were able to still do that, following the procedures, following the guidelines. We had phone calls going on to vendors, that we're targeting, and like, hey, we can supply you this. I just had more people involved in marketing during that period, so we're able to then scale up our customer base. We now had more customer base to cater to, and then we now were able to produce, because what most people were producing at that time, they were still
Right.
producing the fresh, they were still producing the biggest size, but people were not really able to afford it. So what we did was we then tried to make sure we were able to produce what they can afford and double the production. So that way, we as a business, we are still meeting up with our goals as far as what we should be targeting at the end of the harvest period. So we're still able to meet up to that. We just have to double the production to meet up to
Right.
that, even though we are now selling less, but we are now doubling the production. So then we were just boxing it up. We're sending it to Abuja, we're boxing up, sending it to Lagos, we're boxing it up, sending it to Port Harcourt. So we were just boxing it up and just shipping, because there were added values. The shelf life were definitely going to be preserved. We have up to 6 months, right? So what I did, I hired the Malams that are they really skilled as far as smoke, because some of our clients were willing to get the um, the well processed catfish with charcoal
Right.
and firewood. So the customers that want that, we hired the malams to do it at the farm. They did it up to standard. We had them distribute that, and then we had customers that want the oven baked fish. As long as they're in the certain size that we were selling, we're able to keep that going. People were willing to spend that amount for what we produce than spending more. Now, after COVID, when everything gets back to normal, we'll go back and incorporate both models at the farm. But for right now, that is what we were sticking with to keep the business going.
Nice. So that's it. It's a brief one. Thank you, my man, for that
It's good.
wonderful section. So,
Uh,
like I said earlier, make sure you go and check out the two previous sessions with Ernest. You would enjoy them. The first one being how to set up a catfish business using having a capacity of up to 15,000, catfish farm, and the other is basically the mistakes, the 10 mistakes you need to avoid. Very detailed, very informative. Make sure you like and share. So, from me and Ernest, thank you for watching, and I'll definitely catch you in the next one. All right. Peace and
Please.